would like to kick us off with a question for somebody on the panel. What would you like to know more about what you've heard today? Yes, Vicky.
Hi, I wanted to go back and think about the panel conversation on financial health. And maybe I was the only person in the room that was feeling distinctly uncomfortable, which is a good thing because it's good to put yourself in a discomfort zone because you change something, you disrupt. And I think the question coming out of it is, I don't actually think it's enough to just be aware, because there's many of us in the room that, having been in corporate for many years and then moved away from corporate for some of the reasons that we've discussed here that should be changing in terms of behaviors, in terms of attitudes, in terms of biases. But then moving into, to become a small business owner, to become an independent person, that financial health mindset, rainy day, saving for, is a whole different ballgame now. So I think there needs to be a slightly shifted conversation there, because whilst it was incredibly thought-provoking, and with the action around it of being aware, there's also another subject, there's another discussion, which is for entrepreneurs, for independents. It's quite a different thing, because actually you're thinking in a very, very different way and operating in a very different way. So maybe all the answers aren't here, but I think it's a whole other discussion. Thank you.
Does it work? It works.
Yes.
I actually asked people to actually act at the end. That was a clear message for action. Back to whether you're an employee or an independent contractor. I think, to be quite honest and quite direct, the independent contractors, the self-working, the ZZP'ers, as they're being called in the Netherlands, it's even worse. So how many of you are a ZZP'er? Look. So now next question, how many of you put savings aside every month? Not only for... Okay, well done. You're a good set of them. Fantastic. Congratulations. But how many of your peers are doing that? I can tell you not many. And this is the biggest challenge for the Dutch pension. It's actually the challenge of my generation. When I retire, there will be a number of people who have not saved. And they will be raising their hand to our political leaders at the time and say, hey, we want money. But they simply didn't save enough. So the Dutch system of pension actually ensures that your employer puts aside money for your pension while you do it at the same time yourself. Those independent contractors get gross being paid out at the moment, and they get net being paid out what they normally earn gross. But if you don't save, you actually have an issue. Also, there's also the risk of disability. So there are a number of different risks attached to each different situation. But I fully agree with you. Everybody should act. And they should not call on society to, as an act of God, help us. No, it's your own responsibility. But not many, and not in the Netherlands, not many politicians are actually able or dare to say what I'm saying now. Like, you should arrange for your own retirement and not depend on society. We in Holland also have a AOW, so we also get from our government, we get money when we're over 68. But that's only €1,000 gross a month, so not much. Okay, thank you. But thank you for raising it.
I have something to say. You have to remember that while I might talk about corporates, I'm actually an entrepreneur. The Will Forum India is a private limited company, right? So I'm sorry that we missed out on your discussions for being an entrepreneur. Is there something in particular that you wanted to think about as an entrepreneur to assist you later, so that we can think about it? Opening it to? What is it, so that we can think about it later for tomorrow or something?
It's exactly that. Open up the conversation.
Okay.
I've been in a corporate environment. It felt good. You don't need to think about it. But you make the pivot, like I say, for various reasons that are part of the other agenda.
Yes.
So I think there's a responsibility of everyone in the room
Yes.
to open up the dialogue around how to take action. Because, I don't think I'm stupid, but I'm also thinking, okay, how do I put this into action?
Good.
How do I genuinely get to that 12% per month or get back to as it was previously? So I'd love to have some answers, some smart answers. I think it's let's just activate another conversation, another set of working and thinking around it.
Okay, we'll put that in the agenda for tomorrow a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something to the question and discussion. It's not only for us to be aware and to take action, but to also teach our daughters to do so. Because I have a daughter and she turned 18 last year. And I told us, from now on, you have to have your own insurance for when you come to die, and you have to save, because she also started a small business. And then she asked her friends, do you have savings? And they said, no, we don't have savings. Our parents will take care of that. And she said, no, my mom told me I should take care of that myself. So for those of you who have daughters, teach your daughters.
Who can we... Over here we have a question, and then I see a question in the back. I'm keeping an eye. Here you go.
I'm Charlene with the Women's Business Initiative, and WBII, the Women's Business Initiative, is a member of the Dutch Women's Council, the NVR. And last week we held the Princesses Day, which is a lead up to Prince's Day. And on Princesses Day, one of the topics that was brought up was the lack of pensions, the lack of social programs for entrepreneurs. And those discussions were submitted to the government, actually, as a lead up to Princess Day. So there is some political action in the works, just so you know.
What kind of social programs do you want, so that we also keep it in mind for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's, when you're sick, when you're ill, disability insurance, pensions. Okay. And the thing is that, governments all over the world are supporting entrepreneurship as a way of bringing in new innovative ideas, new innovative businesses, putting people to work who otherwise wouldn't have jobs. So, and SMEs are the backbone of any community, any country. If you look at the number of small businesses, it's in the 90%, supporting. So small businesses are the backbone of a community, and I think that the government should take that into consideration and look at ways of supporting pensions and other social programs.
Okay, good. Sorry, I have to move to the lady at the back. As I'm walking to the lady in the back, lady in the back, some of the resources that we could think about sharing around entrepreneurship. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of Broodzakfonds here. Okay, that's something to Google. And books. Please recommend books that you've read on it, because we don't have wonderful organisations like Ellevest in the US who make it their mission to teach women about education, educate them around finance.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Marjorie. I'm from Wise Women Awards, Wisdom for Women International. Just a quick comment about what you said and what our dear lady said in response to your talk in the morning. I want to say that your financial decisions are really your own responsibility as a small business person. And I wanted to just add a bit of a caution, because we've heard you're going to be saying a few things tomorrow. It's just maybe a few hours you have tomorrow, and I wanted to caution that with finances, people require professionals. You require a financial advisor to kind of guide you properly, and it might be a bit challenging to get such an advice here, or putting the responsibility on the panel to get that. I wanted to just quickly put that quick caution. Discussions can be opened up, but when you leave here, please go back, make your own financial decisions, etc., as a way forward. I just wanted to put that caution. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure that the rest of our panel doesn't feel left out. So can somebody give me a question that is for this half of the panel? Yes, still got hand up, very brave. There you go.
Good day, everyone. My name is Stephanie Oyobo. So I read a book on competence, and according to the author, for you to be competent, people are judged based on perceived competence and not by the actual work they do. And then he gave examples of how to be perceived as competent. So you should be confident, you should speak with a deep voice, you should have a British accent, it will help. So,
It does.
so my question to you is, do you think women are not at the top because they are not perceived as competent? And if you agree with the author's ideology, what advice would you give to us to be perceived as competent?
Yep. Okay.
So, as you can imagine, in the world of politics, this is a big issue. And so our network addresses this all the time. We did a piece of research last year called the Reykjavik, as in Reykjavik, Iceland, it's where we're headquartered, the Reykjavik Index for Leadership, where the public in the G7 countries were asked about their perceptions of suitability for leadership and about men and women, and then across sectors, et cetera. But it was actually quite surprising, some of the findings. I mean, so G7 countries, right? So US, UK, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, and Canada. Right? No, not Canada. Yes? Yes. And the country that actually, the two that fared worst in terms of perceptions of suitability of women for leadership were Italy and Germany. Yeah, lots of surprise in the room on that one, right? And the point is, though, across all, and so that was interesting because Italy doesn't have experience of, to my knowledge, of a female president or prime minister. So it's not that surprising that they haven't had the experience, but Germany does. For the last 14 years or whatever, it's been led extremely successfully by a woman. And yet, both men and women surveyed said that they don't see women as suitable for leadership. I mean, a majority did, but it was low relative to the other countries. And that was all across all of the 7 countries. I think that the perception was about 70% of the public was comfortable with women in political leadership, and it was only slightly higher for business leadership. So there's clearly a problem, is a long way of answering your question, in terms of perceptions of leadership, even when there's examples of success stories. Now, it may come to, obviously, Chancellor Merkel doesn't have a British accent. Who knows what are the issues there, but there's big, deep things, and they go across the world, right? It's not just a European issue.
Shaila, could I actually come to you on that point? Because you, as a female working, as you said, in a male-dominated industry, how has the issue of competence presented itself within your industry? Not necessarily for you, but for other women trying to get into the same roles that you are?
So, I'm going to be really honest. It really helped that I'm an engineer. So, if you're talking about competences and background, being a technical engineer, worked in the technical area for several years, it really helped because, in a way, the perception of you as a competent person within the technology context really validates me being there for some men. So, working in a male-dominated area, let me start first. Do you want to be in top of a company? That's the first question. Do you want to go there? Do you want to be part of a board? Because we're talking here about being on a board and having a board position, but is this do you really want to go there? Is that what your career wishes are? So that's the first question. And then it's a very complex situation of strategy. So, which route are you going to take? And I heard on the panel before, it was about certification, getting the papers and everything else. Yes, that's an element as well, but it's not like, the golden egg to get there. So there are several factors that you need to have in place. For me, growing up in a family with 3 brothers, and I was the oldest and a girl, so I get all the blows, and being a girl, I wasn't allowed to do anything. It learned me as well that I had to push through, and that I have to have a lot of perseverance to get where I want. So, again, it's not easy working in a male-dominated environment because I have to be daily aware of the fact, that if you make a mistake, it's going to be under a vergrootglas? Microscope, yeah. Oh, yeah, the other one.
Magnifying glass.
Yeah, the magnifying glass. It's going to be there, and you know what? You have to deal with that as well. So if you get pushback in any way from men, or in a way, and that's why we talked about unconscious bias, for instance, you have to create for yourself a skin and a tactic and a way, and mentors and coaches can work with that to overcome, because we're not living in an ideal world, you know? You have to be able to conquer that, counter that, and push through, and be very clear where you want to go. Be clear where you want to go.
Let me finish. Sorry. Because I love this topic, because I'm a leadership specialist. I studied leadership in school. And one of the things we were taught is, as a leader, you need to have, certain qualities and traits. And so many people, now focus on trying to learn those masculine leadership traits, because that's what people consider as leadership. That's the thing. But how can you bring in your feminine values into your own leadership style and still be able to communicate your value? I do not support, and I said to myself, I will never do it. I'm not going to pitch in front of any investor for me to get money to run a business. Most times people are put under pressure. You can't judge people by standing up there to give a pitch. If they don't understand business planning and strategies and how to grow and build and scale, it's not going to work. They just get the money and the business goes down. So the thing is, these are all artificial things, it's hype. It's hyped everywhere. So people are coached to learn how to pitch their business ideas. I'm talking as to entrepreneurs. Meanwhile, they don't spend that same time to understand their business ideas, strategies, how to scale it up, how to market it and promote it. They don't know these things. I've taken bank loans several times in my own business, and I paid them back. I grew my company. I didn't have to pitch in front of anybody. I had to prove that I could do it. So when we decide that we want to spend our time learning how to pitch properly, just to speak, it's important if you really need it. But for me, I don't need it, so I don't have to do it. But again, when we talk about confidence, like you mentioned, I spoke 2 days ago during the leadership retreat for women on the topic of closing the confidence gap. Confidence is important for a whole lot of things. It helps you to speak up. It helps you to challenge other people, ideas. It helps you to stand up there and inspire followers. Because here we're talking about leadership, and leaders inspire people. You have to communicate your vision so people can follow you. So if you're not able to communicate it, you won't get followers, and you can't call yourself a leader. But you don't need British accent.
Hey!
Because I can still be here inspiring you. I can I can inspire you with my Nigerian accent as well, right? So, no.
What do you want to comment?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say, but it's weird now after what Lara said, but okay. The thing is that I really also think that in Holland, on the TV, there's many more women with sports programs and all these things that normally men were doing. And the thing is that I realize when I watch it, I find it really normal. I'm like, oh yeah, nice girl. But it's not that normal. But because I think if we watch that more and more and more, it becomes more normal, mainstream to be a woman in that position. And that's what you're saying. So if through people that persist and just do the things that are not normal, then and we see it on TV or wherever, we need those role models to perceive it as normal, which is maybe not now and very normal. You understand what I'm saying? It's a bit difficult.
I totally do. No, I totally. It is actually very normal to get also in the athletic world that we see men and women, you know. So there was a whole discussion going on about female soccer and male soccer and being paid in the same way and, you know, things like that. So my daughter came home and she said, well, female soccer players are, well, it's rubbish. And I was like, why? Yeah, because it's slow and it's not nice to look at. And I'm like, it's like I'm hearing, you know, some guys talking here. So I said, you know what, and what about female hockey? Because female hockey is like, you know, top notch. And so, you know, it is a process. It's definitely a process. And I was talking, so gender is a thing in my company because, you know, we need to have more women. And I asked the men in my company, so what does your wife do? And 9 out of 10 said, well, a little bit like your story. She stayed at home and took care of my career and, you know, take care of the children. And that's what they bring to the company as well. So, you know, my background is that my wife stays at home, take care of the children, and that's a conscious choice, which I really, you know, respect. But that's what they take to the company as well. And so we're slowly changing that. And I do believe that if I look at my children, my youngest is 10, and then I have a daughter of 16, they will, when they grow up, I'm pretty confident that the world will be different. I think so too, and I can see that at my children already. Yeah, and you have to provide role models and examples. You know, that's quite important. You want to say something? Oh.
Well, I'll defend my British accent first, if I may. But to the point on competencies, I mean, it's more than competencies. It's also willpower. And there was a conversation earlier about, I think you were quoting Sir Matt Busby, and the difference between pursuit of excellence and pursuit of perfection. And you know, the conversation that I have with Benkisu is about performing excellently in your current role, right? So that's about taking your competences and elevating them, and then to be seen for excellence in those competences is what leads to, normally is what leads to progression. So I do not engage in any mentoring or sponsoring conversations unless the focus is on excellence in the current role. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The other thing very quickly is, it's interesting, we've got to get this gender thing out of the way, because the real conversation you want to have is the one you started with until you redirected, which is finance. That's much more important, right? I mean, we shouldn't be having a conversation about gender and women commentators on sport. Good grief, much more important. There's a gap in our pension systems, and it's disproportionately affecting people like you in this room. So the quicker we get away from this distraction of gender stuff, then you can have more time on the agenda for the things that you really need to work on.
Questions left?
So for me, it is working. Yeah. So for me, it was not really a question. I just wanted to thank Ebere for what she said about women and leadership, because I'm just tired of waiting for someone to tell me what type of leader I should be. The thing is, there is not only one style of leadership. You have transformational leadership, you have authoritarian leadership, you have transactional leadership, you have so many styles of leadership. As a woman, we have that plus emotional intelligence, and we should know what we bring as well. So we should not wait for someone to tell us, okay, this is the type of leader you should be, and get validated by someone else. We should learn, get our education, know what we can bring, and when we ask for that promotion or for that place, we're not going to beg for that place. We're just going to prove that we deserve that place, and we just know our stuff. So thank you for saying that, because I'm really tired of people just talking about leadership like something very vague and something that is going to come from the sky or anything. It's something that you're going to learn, and it is also something that you're going to have to practice for such a long time. So thank you.
Yeah. And our last question, questions ending with question marks, please, comes from Nike.
Nike, and my question I want to direct my question to the men here. Because Jeff just said something that we should forget about the gender, but I think the purpose of being here is to close the gender gap. So my question is, whenever men sees women, what is it that is going on in their minds? Because if we know what is going on in their minds, we'll know how to behave, how to carry ourselves, so that they could change their impression about us. So my question is to the men. So what is it that goes on your mind when you see women? So.
This could turn into a very different conference very quickly. Let's get some microphones to the men.
Hello?
Yes. Me first. Paolo? Yes. And yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a bit one of my biases, because for me, I'm used to work in like very balanced teams. In New York, I was the only man with 14 women in a team. And that's at the same time, and I have really a passion for gender issues. And that's a little bit also then my biases, because I have such a passion for gender issues, and I think, the problem is I think, that I'm very fluent in working like in different contexts. Like then sometimes this is a bias, because at the end of the day, I don't have a shared experience. I'm a white man. I cannot take that away. So even with the passion I have and thinking that I'm really at ease working those teams, then this becomes for me a bias, because I still, at the end of the day, I don't have a shared experience. Oh, for me, that's what I'm saying. So for me, women and men, there is no difference.
So fundamentally, so my point about get gender out of the room is because my point is there's much more important topics, right, like finance, that's all. I think it's a very important topic, that's why I'm here as well. I believe fundamentally in a meritocracy, right? So that's my foundational value and belief, and that underpins everything in terms of how I interact with people of all descriptions. It's about, whether the person brings value to a context and how I can interact with that person and how we can jointly create value, whether it's with people of my own tribe of, reforming default men or a more mixed audience. So for me, it always starts from a whatever, that perspective. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that's how I look at it. I hope that answers your question.
I'll try to answer the question as well. I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier, which is none of us can speak for all men, right? So you're asking us sort of to do that, and I'm not going to try to do that. What I will tell you is the way I perceive it. And my background is actually, before my present job, I worked 20 years in and around journalism. And so I'm really interested in stories. And so I think, like Paul a little bit, I'm already coming to these questions with a fairly sympathetic mindset, in the sense of we're interested in gender and what is that dynamic in the relationship that plays on so many other things. So for me, when I meet women leaders in particular, I'm assuming that it's not been easy to get where they've gotten. And I want to know what's their story, how did they achieve that, because they must be pretty impressive.
Yeah, this is working now. Thank you. So I haven't spoken on this session. I do want to say that having made the keynote in the morning, I want us to come back at the end to what we started with so that we close the day properly. And I think it's important to remember the title of this conference. It is Women, Business, and Sustainability. And, we can't get gender out of the way. That's the name of the conference. We must remember that we are 50% of the population. And, I'm from India, and I can say we have 500 million women. Just Indian women alone are 8% of the world population. Just the women, not the men. Now, 8% of the population has got a huge capacity to impact GDP. We can't get them out of the way. It's very important to remember the power that we have, both financially and otherwise. I also want to mention that in my keynote address, if you remember, I had specifically talked about meritocracy. And the fundamental of meritocracy is equal opportunity. First, you do equal opportunity. On top of that, you put meritocracy. Otherwise, there is no way that you can say that we have so few women on top and in CXOs. Then the only logic is that the women are no good. That is an unacceptable position to me. The women are not good. There must be something wrong with the ecosystem. I want to continue this dialogue because I think it's important to remember, because when I started 12 years ago, everybody said to me, every CEO, every HR leader, but Poonam, we have meritocracy. I said, I know. Then are the women totally defunct? What is the problem? Please look for something else, some other element, some other variable that I can deal with, because that one is not acceptable to me.
Okay. I wish we could keep going for the rest of the day, honestly, because I could keep taking your questions. I want to hear what you have to say, and I know the panelists want to answer, but we do have to bring today to a close, and I want to do that by just asking each of the panelists for a takeaway or a piece of advice or a commitment to change whatever they feel about what we've been discussing today. If I could start with you, Marguerite.
So we've discussed a number of very serious topics. I would like to finish the day off with wishing you lots of success and do what you enjoy, because then also you will enjoy what you do. Good luck. Thank you.
We must escalate the dialogue. From wherever the dialogue is today, it has to move up. We must. That's my job. It's my job as the chair of the Forum for Women in Leadership to scale up. Must do.
Thank you. For me, really, it's important that leadership is not something that is like far away. It's like, as you say in Italian, on a piedestal, or like, actually all of us have leadership, and we have this important task of really achieving the society that actually we want to live in. And for me, leadership is actually the relationship you have with yourself and how this is lived out to others. And particularly for me, this is also, we all have to have a leadership calling to really make the society more equal and where everybody has the equal opportunities.
I don't think I can add anything, to be perfectly honest. I feel exactly the same way as you said, Paolo, that we really need to accelerate on all fronts. I mean, we're talking about gender equality, sustainability. You know, every system that we're facing has to transform very quickly, right? And acceleration is so key. And speaking out and speaking up, escalating the conversation is critical, whether we're talking about gender issues, climate issues, resource issues, nutrition issues, whatever they are. Time is against us, and we really have to move with pace, is my takeaway.
So, is this working? Yeah. So a year ago, my husband had a sabbatical. And he just stepped down from his position as CEO of one of the insurance companies here in the Netherlands. And after 6 months, he decided to go for another job. And he came home and he said to me, Shaila, if I was a woman with my CV and my experience and my age, they will be lying down in front of our house with all kinds of CEO jobs. And you know what? I think change is on the horizon, because that's, I think, actually what's happening. So, you know, we're getting there. It's slowly, but you know what? Also look at the positive parts of this whole change.
You've been talking about hello, yes, I'll use that one. We've been talking about leadership, also mentoring and role modeling and change. And change is by definition uncomfortable. And leadership is perhaps even more uncomfortable, and it therefore takes courage. And my takeaway is, if I want things to change, then I've got to be courageous to show that leadership, and only then can I expect other people to change. So that's my resolution coming out of here.
I'd like to first of all say thank you to everyone who has made time to be here with us today. Thank you to all our speakers. You've been amazing. Everyone has been talking about each and every one of you. Thank you very much. I may not have the time to give an closing remarks, so I want to say that whatever we have heard today, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Leadership is about action. It's all about action. It's not about listening and keep making noise. There's so much noise out there. Yeah, just like you said, too much noise, gender, what action are we taking to move this conversation forward? And I'm asking you, not just about us or that other person, ask yourself, what can I do differently? As a woman, can I start speaking up more? What do I need to do to, make my point clear? Have a point of view. I always say that, have a point of view. Stop being afraid of being rejected. Don't give up. If you want something, if you want to get to that position, keep pushing. Keep improving yourself, and until you get what you want, your vision. And for our senior leaders here, I also would like to say, when you get back to your companies, what changes, what kind of discussions can you bring in your board meetings, in your executive meetings, based on all the things you've heard from the women today? Can you sponsor a woman to rise? 1, 2 women? Like the whole of this year, I'm going to choose a woman. I will mentor her, but I will also open doors for her if I think she is, capable to handle such positions. And for those who have enough finance to support women in business, please stop waiting for them to speak so, very eloquently with British accent. If you know that they have good ideas, please support them, finance their businesses, and mentor them on how to grow the business. And for that, I will say thank you to everyone who has supported today's occasion. Tomorrow is another day. We're going to move this conversation forward tomorrow. We have a lot of lineup of excellent speakers again tomorrow, and see you at the dinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Rise and lead. Give it up for your panelists. They've been amazing. You've been amazing.